I'm Andrew Gibbons. I have Rebecca Norton with me, and we're going to be going through the 10 components in 2 parts of Nancy Kline's thinking environment, 10 components. So Rebecca, before I tie myself in knots, tell us who you are and kick us off.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from A Sense of Direction, and I'm delighted to be talking about the thinking environment again. So as you said, we're going to go through the first 5 of the 10 components of a thinking environment as listed by Nancy in her Time to Think book. So the first 5 on the list are attention, incisive questions, equality, appreciation, and ease. So they're the first 5 that we're going to go through. So the first one, attention, listening with respect, interest, and fascination, and perhaps maybe the most important one of the 10. It's quite a biggie, isn't it, this one, Andrew?
It's too big for me. I've been trying to do it ever since you introduced me to the think environment. Attention, as you say, listening with respect, interest, and fascination. We're keeping it tight in this brief summary. We'll go into more depth another time. Let's just look at those. Respect, interest, fascination. Forget fascination. How often do we even get as far as respect? So it's tough. And yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah, I think that one, if we could only implement one of them, I think for me, this one would be the key one, attention. So the second one is incisive questions. So removing assumptions that limit ideas. I think this one is possibly a little bit more tricky to understand, and you'd probably be worth reading through the book to get more from this one. But I think as coaches, I think this probably resonates quite well with us, is identifying appropriate questions at the appropriate times that will help people move beyond something that's keeping them stuck, is possibly how I would describe that one.
Yeah, and there's an interconnection between all 10 components. Already, incisive questions linked to attention. You can only ask incisive questions, I feel, if you've shown attention, if you've thoroughly understood, if you've shown respectful interest. So there's a lot of interconnectedness. And you're right, it does take a bit more thorough understanding of the model. And it is about removing limiting assumptions. Nancy Kline talks in depth, doesn't she, about we all carry limiting assumptions. We all either implicitly, intuitively, or explicitly are aware of what it is that holds us back. And so in a coaching environment, as you say, understanding someone well enough and exploring genuinely what are felt to be their limiting assumptions, which might not be somewhere they've ever gone before. So there's lots of tentative issues there. And, wow, I didn't realize that that was a limiting assumption for me. It's very powerful.
It is. Again, I think this one possibly takes some practice as well, but it's another really key one. And like you said, they do link a lot of these, don't they? So I think, yeah, that's really important. So the third one, equality, treating others as thinking peers. So giving equal turns and attention, keeping agreements and boundaries. Oh, this is a good one. I think this is quite a biggie, isn't it? And for me, this is one that's really important to sort of bring in right from the start, and you've got to agree this. So I think this is important in terms of treating each other as thinking peers. So this is where we have to forget about hierarchies. If we've got managers in the room and employees and things, you've got to forget that. We're all there as equals, and I think that's a tough one.
Well, more tough than I think a lot of people could find possible, because I'm looking at it too. Treating each other as thinking peers. It's a fantastic concept. It's great advice, and it shouldn't be difficult, but it is. I think embedded practice, history, organizational culture, inappropriate deference to people by their role and importance and rank in the organization and not their competence sometimes means that we do not see people treated as thinking peers. We do not see people in meetings treated with equal respect, interest, fascination. There's that word again. Some chads. And again, I'm not knocking the model. For such a simply laid out set of ideas, that's so challenging. The idea of treating people equally at all in the workplace and in the context of thinking peers should not be such an alien concept, but it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you have to sort of almost forget the role of people in the meeting and actually just treat them as another individual. And I think that is really key, and it has to start right from the beginning, that one. But you're right, I think unfortunately, I think sometimes there's cultures in work environments that don't allow for that. So biggie, very important.
And I guess also, Rebecca, as you say, it needs to be worked on from the start. And when it hasn't been, you've got this history to undo. I think what goes through my mind in unpacking the 10 components is constantly to ask myself the question, given the history I have with myself, with my behavior, and in the context of others, to what degree can I truly embark this late on a journey that would have been better started many years before? So the challenge of using Nancy Kline's excellent and powerful and accessible ideas is the challenge of undoing what's gone before.
Yeah, and so it needs some groundwork. I think this is the thing to be aware of, isn't it? Is that there needs to be some groundwork before you can start implementing some of these. Definitely, it's not something that you can probably implement straight away. And I guess this is something that we will address in another video: is how to apply some of these things. So,
okay.
Yeah. So the fourth one is appreciation. Practicing a 5-to-1 ratio of appreciation to criticism. Oh, this is a good one as well, isn't it? How often do we genuinely offer appreciation to friends, colleagues, without sort of having to follow it up with a little bit of criticism or using it as a softener, I think sometimes, perhaps.
Well, I would rarely, if ever, take issue with Nancy, for whom I have the utmost respect, and how could you not? She spent a lifetime on this. 5-to-1 ratio, don't like it. Maybe a 50-to-1 ratio. 5-to-1 with criticism in there as 1/5 of what's out there, too much for me. Maybe aspiration, it would be great. I just don't think culturally the relationships within the workplace exist to support a 5-to-1 ratio, because I think the 1 would eclipse the 5 every time. I'll only remember the bad thing you said about me, not the 5 good ones. But there's no question that there's too little appreciation out there. There's too little genuine, authentic, not cheesy, you've done very well, but when I saw you do this, I was impressed, or I appreciate possibly more than I've ever told you what you do in relation to, that sort of stuff. And as you keep saying, and you're right, it's about doing some things kind of the first time. And that might seem unnatural. It might seem false. It might seem inauthentic. It's overcoming that discomfort with doing the right things now, recognizing they should have been done before.
Yeah, and I think you're right with the appreciation. A lot of the time, people, although I think people crave appreciation, it's actually quite uncomfortable to receive it and receive praise, isn't it? So, but I like how you're talking there is, it needs to be genuine, I think, and actually helping people see what they've done well can be some of those little things, and just really appreciating if you've had a stressful day at work and saying, actually, you know what, I really appreciated it when you brought me a coffee at 4:30 when I needed that bit of a pick-me-up. It doesn't have to be anything hugely deep and profound, but it's just expressing your appreciation for another human being sometimes, possibly.
And when I read this the first time, and I revisited it many times, when I see the word appreciation, what it made me think was I could remember very specifically when I've been appreciated in the workplace. I can remember a colleague of mine back in the 1980s, because I'm so old, saying to me, "You're very good on the phone." And that was Joe Lampin in about 1985. Now, I shouldn't have to remember those things so vividly, and I do it because they're so rare. Now, maybe there's very little grounds for people to appreciate me. That could be it. Maybe other people get appreciation more than once every 37 years. I don't know. Probably the case. But I guess I'm saying really here that when we are given genuine appreciation, it shouldn't be such a big thing. We remember it vividly for 37 years.
No, and I think it's, I mean, obviously that's a really nice experience to have, but appreciation, I think there's feeling attached to that, isn't there? For me, is if I'm genuinely appreciated, it leaves me with a nice warm feeling inside. And I think if we can do that for other people, that's really important to build those relationships up, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's not, as my wife keeps reminding me, it's not all about me. So yes, it's not about the appreciation I get, but you're right, it's much more about the appreciation we give others. I like to think that I do more of that than I might if it was left a chance. I'm a deliberate appreciator. The trouble with doing things deliberately, it can appear uncomfortable, unnatural, until it becomes natural by making it embedded. True of all of these things. They are challenging, simple things to do.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last one that we're going to look at today is ease. So offering freedom from rush or urgency. Oh, another biggie, really. I think, how often have you sat in a meeting and you can see people, clock watching or sort of looking at the door, or, and you can feel that sense of, right, I really must get my message out as quickly as can. You rush it, you feel pressured, you stumble over your word, it doesn't come out how you intend. It's not a great environment for thinking. So offering that space where you know you're going to be listened to without feeling rushed is a really powerful experience.
Again, all of these deserve much more time. We'll give them more time. This is really just a skim over. Ease, yes, all those things you've just said. It's not apparently a natural thing to do, to listen to somebody. It combines well with attention, respectfully, with interest, even fascination.
Yeah.
And part of that is giving them the ease, giving them the space and the comfort of time. And that's not something you can just say, well, I'll give you all the time you need, but then you interrupt them, you appear to be distracted. But appearing calm, appearing long-term interested, suspending all your judgments and all the things you think you should say, all the wisdom you should pass on, forget all that, it's not about you. All people need, Nancy says this again and again and again, all people need is the time they don't get from anyone else that you're providing to explore in more depth than they ever can interactively, because it's one thing to go thinking. Thinking's good as a solo activity. What we found really powerful, I know the two of us, is the value that comes to interactively explore. And I think there's a different dimension to thinking that way. To be in the company of someone who gives you the time you need to do that is a very rare and special experience.
It is. I think that's really key. And that's where it is different. Have somebody there with you, even if you're not actively talking, having somebody present who's giving you that full attention really helps to generate different type of thinking, I think.
Oh, it absolutely does. I've come lately in the last couple of years, certainly since my first touch with Nancy's thinking, I've come to think that a key interpersonal skill is asking questions. And it disappoints me that I'm in so many interpersonal situations with fellow humans and I don't get asked questions, such as, what else have you got to say about that? I'm interested in this. Can you explore that more? Because it suggests people aren't sufficiently interested to be bothered to ask you for more. And I do that very consciously now. Tell me more about that because it interests me. And then you either appear authentic or you don't. I think asking questions is the key to that. Appropriately. Frankly, you might not need to say anything at all. It might just be a silent space. You've given me the words, you'll remember it better than me. Silence is the space of the busy thinker, or something along those lines, isn't it? Silence isn't an opportunity to jump in and say something. Silence is when you sit back and let that silence do something active for someone. Yeah,
it's a really powerful thing. And we have a temptation in our society to want to jump in, I think, when people go quiet. Yeah. So that's the first 5. So attention, incisive questions, equality, appreciation, and ease. And we'll look at the next 5 in another video.
We will indeed. Thank you very much as ever.
Thank you.